There's two underwater UFOs, or two things you've never seen before. They've been buzzing along the side of the boat, and now they're off in the front, kind of heading from south to north. And so I looked out, and I seen these two things. I guess they're about 60 feet apart. They were buzzing along in formation. They're egg-shaped. They're round, more or less egg-shaped round, I guess about 40, 50 feet in diameter, and the same distance long, a little bit to the egg-shaped side. And I followed them for about, I don't know how long, just watching, trying to figure out what it was. I couldn't believe my eyes. They looked like they were really moving out faster the further they got away. They looked like they were about 40 feet underwater, maybe 20 feet, 40 feet. It's out in the crystal clear Gulf Stream. They kept on going off. As they faded away, I don't know if they faded off in the distance or whether they made a dive down or what, but they were gone.
We saw the wall of the lagoon illuminate, and in the dark, something emerging from the water.
Mr. Carday, you were out fishing one morning. Can you tell me what you saw?
It's 5:45 in the morning. I see in the water the bubbles. Minute later, I see the flying up that go out the water, and it stays 20 seconds in the air. After this, I take my camera and take the picture.
In analyzing Mr. Carday's photograph, there's no evidence of a hoax. It doesn't appear as though it was a mistake in the film lab, but there's nothing that has edges on it that we can test with a computer. All we could test for was whether or not it was misty or moving. And it seems to be one of those.
So you believe this was an underground base underneath the sea that you were taken to?
Yes. It looked like an underground parking lot, sort of. It didn't have no windows. It didn't have no door. From there, I lost consciousness, and I woke up in this car, and I was in an area right near the Laguna Cartagena. And at this moment is where I hear the jets flying overhead, making a lot of noise. And I look up to see the jets. What I saw was a round, huge round disc object. And I snapped these photographs.
We found in this photograph, looking at the edges, looking at light reflectivity, the angles, the proportions indicate that this is a flying jet in pursuit of or flying around a disc-shaped object. I think that what the witness reported is what happened.
We noticed that the compass began to act up. It was oscillating. It's like you had a strong magnet in the proximity of the compass. And we happened to notice about this time a strange greenish light coming in low over the water out of the southeast. And it was coming at a very slow clip, and it came in and hovered right above the water. And the water that night was very calm because there was no clouds and no storms. The moon was almost full, and the visibility was excellent. And this object hovered right above the surface of the sea for a few moments, and then it just turned up on its edge and descended right out of sight into the depths.
There have been a number of such spacecraft seen approaching ships and actually disappearing under the water.
My name is Dan Willis. I was in the United States Navy. I held a top secret crypto level 14 extra sensitive material handling security clearance. I worked in the code room at the Naval Communications Station in San Francisco. In 1969, I received a priority message from a ship near Alaska that was classified as secret. The ship reported merging out of the ocean near Port Bow a brightly glowing reddish-orange elliptical object, approximately 70 feet in diameter, emerged out of the water, shot into space, traveling at about 7,000 miles per hour. This was tracked on ship's radar and substantiated. Years later, I worked at the Naval Electronic Engineering Center in San Diego for 13 years. The co-worker who I worked with worked at the NORAD facility, When he first started working at the facility, he noticed objects going on the screens that track everything out in space and in the air, objects going off the scale, doing right-angle turns. When he inquired, his older supervisor advised him that, quote, it was just a visit from one of our little friends. He thought this was a little unusual.
While we were on a transit from the Portland-Seattle area on the surface, I actually saw, I was the port lookout, and I saw the most incredible thing that I think I've ever seen in my life. And it had such a profound effect upon my view of the universe and the world that we live in, that I wish everybody could experience this. I saw come up out of the ocean, from beneath the surface of the sea, a huge disc-shaped craft about the size of a Midway-class aircraft carrier, which is tremendous in size. Even though that's one of our smallest carriers, or was then, it's still a huge, tremendously big object. Came up out of the ocean and rose into the air and tumbled on its axis and went up into the clouds, and I was awestruck, dumbstruck. And I mean dumbstruck, literally. I could not utter a sound. And my first impulse was to tell the officer of the deck that I'd seen a flying saucer, and then luckily for me I couldn't talk, because on second thought that's not what I really wanted to say, because I didn't want to be the only Looney Tunes character on a submarine with a tight-knit crew that you had to live in close quarters with, because that's a hell of a way to live. So I told the officer of the deck that I'd seen something about 15 degrees off the port bow at a relative distance of about 2.5 nautical miles. And he began to look in that area. And the starboard lookout had heard me tell him this, and he began to look over there. And while we were all three watching, either the same craft or another one exactly like it came down out of the clouds, tumbled again on its, why it did this maneuver, I don't know, but every single time it did it. It's like it came down in this attitude, and then it flipped over and then entered the water. And the water just appeared to open up in front of it. It's just like the account in the Bible about the parting of the Red Sea. That's exactly what happened. The sea actually parted, and this thing went into the water, and it closed up behind it. And this big spray went up into the air. But it wasn't a spray from the craft hitting the water. It was a spray from the water coming back in to fill up this hole that had been created. And again, you know, I'm thinking, this is incredible. What are we looking at here? And it was metal. It was a machine, and it wasn't glowing or anything like that. It didn't have any lights on it that we could see. But it was obviously metal, and it was obviously a machine. And although I can't tell you that there was anyone inside of it, I believe that there was. And it did something that, as far as I knew, was absolutely impossible. I'd been in the Air Force. I'd worked on the state-of-the-art of our aviation capabilities, and here I was on the deck of a submarine in the conning tower, and I knew what we had to be able to have to go underwater, and I knew that the two were incompatible. Here's something that came from under the water and flew in the air and performed maneuvers, and then came back down and interfaced with the water at tremendous speed and remained intact, which realistically it never touched the water. The water sort of magically opened up in front of it, but something had to interface with that water. Anything that we had that interfaced with the water in that manner would have been disintegrated. It's like hitting a brick wall. So I was looking at a technology that, as far as our laws of physics and what we knew at that time, didn't exist. This was in 1966. Ensign Ball was as shocked as I was. He called the captain to the bridge, who came up with the chief quartermaster, who brought a camera. And we all stood there and watched this occur over and over again for about 10 minutes. And I still, to this day, don't know if it was the same craft or a whole bunch of different craft going in and out of the water. But it seemed like that there was a hell of a lot of traffic on that freeway right there. And we were watching it as we went by. We never changed course. We never lowered or increased our speed. We made no attempt to communicate or signal. We made no attempt to get closer. eventually it just stopped. We were told not to discuss it with anyone, not even amongst ourselves, which was incredible. I never had been told anything like that in my life. You know, you can't talk about something. And to be told that we couldn't even talk about it amongst ourselves was even more extraordinary, I thought. But we didn't. We didn't talk about it. When we got to Pearl Harbor, all the time the chief quartermaster was taking pictures of this. So I know photographs were made. What happened to those photographs, I have no idea. But when we reached Pearl Harbor, we were not allowed to go ashore to go on liberty, even though we didn't have the duty. And about 2 hours after we berthed at the submarine base, a commander from the Office of Naval Intelligence came on board and debriefed each one of us individually in the captain's stateroom. And the ultimate outcome of the debriefing was that we didn't see anything, we didn't hear anything, and we had to read rules and regulations that told us that if we ever talked about what it was that we didn't see, that we could be imprisoned, we could be fined $10,000, we could lose all pay and allowances due or ever to become due. And I learned at that moment that the United States Navy didn't want anybody to know about what we saw, and that severe consequences could come down around the neck of anybody who did. And that was when I understood fully that, yeah, there's a real cover-up. These things do exist, number one, and at least the United States Navy doesn't want anybody to know about it. And there's stiff penalties for anybody who bucks that.
Вылетающие из-под воды объекты иногда успевают сфотографировать. Вот, например, несколько снимков, которые сделали жители Канарских островов весной 1979 года. На их глазах из-под воды вылетел огромный темный объект и устремился вверх. Через мгновение он ярко засветился и пропал из глаз, оставив после себя громадное светящееся облако. А через 2 месяца нечто подобное наблюдали рядом со своим судном черноморские моряки. На этот раз из-под воды вылетел сияющий диск, ярко осветивший судно своими лучами. В этот момент и был сделан этот уникальный снимок. В мае 1997 года неопознанные светящиеся объекты были засняты над Средиземным морем. О своих встречах с подобными объектами рассказывают и военные моряки.
Я был отправлен на подводной лодке дизельной на боевую службу на Фареро-Исландский рубеж между Исландией, островом и Фарерскими островами. Днем в подводном положении, ночью надо всплыть, проветрить подводную лодку, а самое главное – подзарядить аккумуляторную батарею. Ну, как только перископ начинает подниматься, командир, значит, сразу же перископу и быстро круг с 360 градусов делаешь пляску на перископе. Осмотрел, горизонт чист. Точно так же в одну из ночей в феврале 1972 года всплыл, стал осматривать горизонт, и вдруг я увидел нечто непонятное. Над горизонтом, но угол приблизительно максимум 3, 4, 5 градусов был. Что-то похожее на круглое, чуть-чуть эллипсовидное, но достаточно большое казалось мне. Но, по крайней мере, Луна была совершенно в другой стране, а небо было закрытое. А это нечто было такого оранже-красного цвета, которое какое-то создавало неприятное психологическое ощущение. Просто аж какое-то вот давящее на психику. Ну, я бы сказал, даже какое-то чувство страха там некоторые создавало. Но это не был кораблем, не было судном. Это было что-то над поверхностью. Поэтому мы приняли решение ничего в журнал не записывать, поскольку объяснить мы не в состоянии были, что это такое, а погрузиться и продолжать выполнять задачу.
Right on the edge of a 160-foot cliff above the water, and I have an unobstructed view of at least 180 degrees from my viewpoint, and all of a sudden I saw this object coming from the northeast. Do you know where Ketron Island is?
Yes.
Oh, okay. It was coming from Ketron Island along that shore
which belongs to, it's Fort Lewis Reservation, you know.
Yes.
It was way out over there by that shore, and it was coming down the sound at a fast clip. And this was a half-moon object, not a flying saucer type.
Yes.
But it was half-moon, and it was quite thick in the front part of it, you know.
Yes.
In other words, it was half-moon, and it just it was going forward in that direction, and it was just skimming on top of the water, and it dove into the water.
Appears we got disconnected.
Yeah, I guess we did. I was going through all this program. I'll try to start all over again. It was coming from the Ketron Island area along the far shore, and I could see everything clear beyond the Squally Flats. You know what that is?
Uh-huh.
Okay. It came along, and it probably was about even with DuPont when it dove into the water. You know where DuPont is?
I don't think so.
Well, DuPont is right across from where I live.
Okay.
Okay. And I live on Cove Point, Anderson Island.
Right.
When it got just about to DuPont, it dove into the water and left a big foam spray-like deal when it went into the water.
Yes.
And it disappeared. And I kept looking and wondering what the heck it was, you know. And pretty soon, maybe 6 seconds or so, it surfaced again. And it skimmed on top of the water, about 100 feet above the water. And it continued on for quite a ways. And then when it got to approximately, even with the Squally Flats, it dove into the water again. And I couldn't see it again after that. If it came up again, I don't know.
Uh-huh.
It disappeared. And I couldn't see any beyond that point. That's what that's my version of the whole thing.
I see. What was the time lapse from the time you first saw it till it just disappeared the last time?
Oh, it was about not over 2 minutes.
Uh-huh.
It was very fast. It was moving at quite a speed. And it was the darndest thing I ever saw in my life. I just was really, I always keep binoculars right by the window, and we are leaving for Mexico for 3 months in a couple of days, and we had loaded them in our motorhome.
Uh-huh.
And otherwise, I might have got a better view of it with our binoculars, but it was very clear, and there was any doubt about what I saw.
Yes. Well, now your side of the island, is that facing east?
No, facing south.
South, due south.
Due south.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
Uh-huh. And the weather was fairly good then?
Yes, the weather was clear.
Uh-huh.
And the water was smooth. There wasn't a ripple on the water. It was just like glass.
Yes. Now, you were observing this from indoors?
From indoors, yes.
I see.
We have 16 feet of glass here.
Uh-huh.
And on the front of our home. And we have, like I say, unobstructed view for at least 180 degrees.
I see. Were there any ships or boats on the water at the time?
Not at the time. There wasn't a boat or ship in sight. And shortly after that, there was a lot of boats.
I see.
But where they were at this time, I can't figure it out. But right after that, there was more boats than I've seen since last summer.
I see. Well, then somebody in authority probably heard about that also and sent boats out.
Yes, there was a lot of boats. A lot of boats. It just seemed like they just were swarming shortly after that.
Would that be in the area where this thing finally went into the water and didn't come out again?
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And do you know where the Squally Flats are and the point southern point of Anderson Island is?
Yes, I know of the island, yes.
Well, there was, I heard friends of mine, they go fishing a lot. They said there was probably 50 boats out there later after that.
Uh-huh.
But they were all fishing, of course.
Yes.
They were looking for what I
want to get a confirmation of the date. Was that Sunday morning or Monday morning?
No, that was Saturday.
Saturday morning, the 18th.
Saturday morning.
Okay.
Yeah, the 18th at 8:30, exactly 8:30 in the morning. My wife wasn't up yet. I hollered at her, but by the time she got there, well, it was, of course, gone.
And, of course, have you heard any discussion among your friends or neighbors about seeing it at all?
No, I told I wasn't even going to report it because I figured that people wouldn't believe me anyway. So, but some of our friends said I should report it, and that's how come I reported it.
I see.
It was really quite exciting, or whatever you want to call it.
Yes, I know what you mean. Did you notice any aircraft in the area later?
No, we didn't have any aircraft in the area at the time or afterwards at all. No. I'm sure it wasn't an airplane because it was a big object. I'd say it was, maybe the front of it was 75 feet long in this half moon deal. And it was just big and moving at a terrific speed, and how it could dive in the water and then surface again, it just was quite puzzling to me.
Yes. Did you see any surface features or openings or lights or anything on this object?
No, it was a white gray color, kind of a white grayish color.
Yes.
And I saw no openings on it. Of course, it's about I imagine from my home across to the other side is probably about 2 miles.
I see.
So I couldn't see any windows or anything if there was such a thing in it.
No electrical interference in your area that you noticed?
Well, I didn't notice any at that time. I didn't have the radio on or anything. Although, you talked about discussion, friends of mine said that a day or two before that there was some other sightings around the narrow bridge. Now, I don't know whether that's so or not, and that people said that friends of mine said that your two-way radio communication, they couldn't get the radios to work for about 10 minutes.
Yes, we heard about that report.
Yeah.
Yes, that was another very large object.
Yeah, and that was the next day, I believe, after this happened. What I saw. See, and it was. My wife said, no, that was just after Christmas. I might have that mixed up, that date. But what I saw, I know I saw, and it was there. It was no imagination, because I'm not the type that imagines things. I've been a pilot for 40-some years, 46, 48 years, and commercial pilot, and I flew for the Air Force during World War II, and logged over 17,000 hours without, that is, during the war.
Yes.
And I haven't paid any attention to hours I've had since then, or before then even. I've been flying many years, and I've never seen anything like this before.
I'd say you were a highly qualified observer then.
Well, I would say I am, yeah.